Well, good evening, and good evening. I want to thank you so much for joining me this evening. This evening, the of April, 5th of April, 2025. 5th of April, 2025. I want to thank you so much for joining me on Talk and Sip Saturday night. Of course, Talk and Sip Saturday night is what the essence of the show really is about, and started this from the lockdown period of 2020, uh, and then having different drinks with different persons. But it evolves over the time, and it evolves with finding out that there have been very serious discussions that we've been having. We were talking about things from the COVID period till now, and uh, and I'm not going to say any word of what I'm doing now, but I invite you to tell me what you are uh, doing now in regards to this, because if I say this, what happened is that TikTok picks it up and start to give me some sort of restrictions. So I won't say that. So if what you're having, and if you're having something, whatever, you can type it or whatever, but I'm not gonna say it, because if I say it, TikTok is gonna say something. So I'm just having a quick one. Yeah. Tonight the topic is about civics masterclass, and this is episode 2 of this major discussion, which is so very prevalent at this time in Jamaica, and not just Jamaica, but in regards to the whole world. Because what we're seeing is a situation whereby whenever you have after an election is like after the 4 years and the 5 years is like what happened in between. Yeah, what happened in between. And I want to thank for persons who are joining me on Instagram, hi Vita, how are you? Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook and YouTube. But I do invite you to join me over on to YouTube, because YouTube you can get a better picture, and also on Facebook as well. And my guest tonight is going to be Matondo Mukulu. Matondo Mukulu is going to be my guest lecturer tonight. Matondo Mukulu was the acting public defender in Jamaica a few years back, and he's going to be talking about civics masterclass, and especially on citizenship and civics. I believe that is so important. And over the weeks coming, I'll have different persons. I'll have Lord Simon Woolley from the House of Lords here in the UK is going to be talking about a former chair of Operation Black Vote. I hope to have Miss Jeanette Calder talking about the measuring portal or so, and how dealing with accountability. Hoping to have Miss Professor Rosalie Hamilton as well, and different persons. Hopefully to have Mr. Raymond Treasure as well, dealing with the whole aspects of civics. So in relation to what is happening now and in Jamaica, I just believe that it is important that one look at this key very topic, you know. And the relationship between civics and citizenship, and especially in Jamaica, is that it is deeply interconnected. The concepts that play a critical role in shaping the social fabric of Jamaica. Civics derived from the Latin word of civicus. Take your notes and pen. Civicus, civicus meaning relating to a citizen, is fundamentally concerned with educating individuals about their rights, responsibilities, and the workings of society and government. In Jamaica, civics education aims to instill national pride, promote cultural integrity, and foster an understanding of democratic principles, thereby laying the foundation for informed and active citizenship. Citizenship, on the other hand, represents a practical application of those civic principles, involve participation in societal and governmental processes, adherence to laws, and contributing to nation building efforts. In Jamaica, citizenship is not merely a legal status, but a dynamic relationship between individuals and their community. In worldwide as well, emphasizing mutual respect, responsibility, and collaboration for national development. The reintroduction of civics into Jamaica's school curriculum, which is what everyone is crying out for, and what many people have been talking about on this show, and what many people have been saying. And I said, instead of just talking about it, I just said, let's do it. and myself and Matondo Mukulu and a couple other persons was on the other show some weeks ago, and we said let's just do it. My first guest was on the 22nd of March for the 10 years of the Silburn Show. 10 years I've been doing the show. And I said, let's give it back to Jamaica. And Miss Joanne Simpson, the author of the book, came on and started the ball rolling. So by teaching students about their rights and responsibilities, national symbols, cultural heritage, and governance structures, different areas going to tap into, civic education equips young Jamaicans with the tools to become responsible citizens, to actively participate in societal growth. And when I say young people, it could be young persons in the mindset that don't understand anything about this. This initiative also addresses challenges such as incivility, lack of respect for authority, and social disconnect, shown by fostering values like tolerance, fairness, and respect for others. Ultimately, the relationship between civics and citizenship in Jamaica is symbiotic, and also the world, and in the UK, and in the US, and especially in the USA, with what's happening over there now. Civics provide the knowledge framework necessary for understanding one's role as a citizen, while active citizenship ensures the practical realization of these principles through meaningful engagement in community life. Together, they contribute to Jamaica's vision of creating a prosperous society where individuals are proud of their identity and committed to a national progress. Yeah, to a national progress. And that is so important. Well, thank you so much, Ezekiel. Thank you, Margaret Cohen, for joining. So without further ado, I'm going to be bringing on Mr. Matondo Mukulu, and we'll just get the ball rolling. Try to make it very tight and clean. So, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome Mr. Matondo Mukulu.
Well, good evening, Sid.
Hey, good evening. How are you doing, Matondo? How are you doing? How are you doing?
I'm excellent, and good night, good afternoon, good morning to all your viewers,
Hmm.
and congratulations on your 10th anniversary.
Yes. Thank you so much. When you say excellent a while ago, I was gonna say that sound like you're saying that His Excellency. I thought you were saying you're excellent, like His Excellency, the Governor General. Hey, Matonda, listen. The other night when I was talking about the show, and you mentioned about the discussion, and I said about civics, and you put up this book here. This is the book that you put up. You put
Oh
up this
yeah.
book. Yeah, you flag up
Hmm.
this book, New Vision Civics Jamaica, and I said, there we are. There we are. We got the material. We don't need to go any further. And then I had Miss Joanne Simpson, who was the author of the book, who came on a week ago to start the ball rolling. And I said, let's do it and let's talk about civics. She set the stage. We're giving an all rounder, and you're going to be the first, like the guest lecture, just talk about citizenship, civics, and citizenship. And as we know in Jamaica, what is happening now, and actually, Matunda, around the world, after 4 years and after 5 years, do people just wait and just sit back and wait until they go back into to the vote to vote, or what happens in between? What is that relationship that citizens should know and understand? So I'm gonna put it over to you, Matunda, to lead the way, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, please get your pens and paper, and because this is a teaching moment, really. It's not this is an educating moment. Yeah. Yes, Matunda, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm,
Yeah, I mean, I heard you sort of indicate to persons the meaning of the word or its origin.
mm,
Um, the term citizenship,
yeah.
which I suppose for modern definitions that are based on Western democracy. You go back to the all the Greeks used it in the word polis. Suppose the word polis, the political structure, comes to mind. But
Mm,
in modern times, yes, the when the Greek Empire was quite extensive, being a citizen of Rome was usually a passport itself to entry into that part of the world that at that time was not covered by the um, the Greek Empire. But that was how important citizenship meant, and you translate that into modern day, um, the modern world or the Western world, and in the context of wars between nations, if you happen to capture an American citizen, you know that that empire behaves as if you've captured 50 million persons. We see it reinforced in in the movies. So belonging to a nation means something. Belonging to not just the Roman Empire, or the Greek or the American Empire, but also belonging to the nation of Jamaica means something. And you can either be a citizen of Jamaica, either being born there, or on the Jamaican Nationality Act, you, let's use the word loosely, you inherit that citizenship. It's conferred upon on you by the minister. Your parents, in the context of say the United Kingdom, your parents might have been born in Jamaica, and by under Jamaican law, even if you were born overseas, you're deemed to be Jamaican, a Jamaican citizen. Of course, you have to go ahead and naturalize. You have to go ahead and naturalize to be a Jamaican, and that is what you call legal citizenship. And for those who are interested, you can read the Jamaican Nationality Act, and it delineates and it sets out the circumstances under which the the minister, in this case, the minister of national security, can confer on an individual citizenship. And what's legal citizenship does, for a starter, it means you certainly can reside in the country without there being any requirement placed on you by the state to get a visa to remain there. It also means that once you're of age, you can participate in the political process by voting. It also entitles you under the Constitution to all the rights and privileges accorded to citizens. Any job that's available to you, that's only available to Jamaicans, is available to you because you're a citizen. The Constitution of Jamaica, the rights that are set out at Section 13 of the Constitution, that we call the Charter of Rights, it means that you cannot be exempted in any way from them. But I hasten to say that as a citizen or a non-citizen, if you reside and once you're in Jamaica within the geographical, sorry, the legal physical space of Jamaica, the rights that are set out at Section 13 of the Constitution are really applicable to everyone. There are no exemptions. But certainly as a citizen, you have all those legal rights that come with being a citizen. You have access to jobs, you have access to resources that are provided by the state. And that, in and of itself, establishes as a citizen, because most persons see citizenship from the perspective of rights. And I can understand why they do so. But it also has what, in my view, is a more deeper meaning, especially in a democratic space. And that deeper meaning is, of course, your responsibilities as a civic citizen. I think I heard you allude to it earlier in the introduction, said, and it's the responsibilities of an active citizen. What does that mean? Well, in a liberal democracy, we're going to have institutions, and those institutions require the input of citizens because those institutions require citizens to attend to them so that they can function and so that the benefits of true citizenship, of active citizenship, are felt throughout the country. Now, what does active citizenship look like in a liberal democracy like ours? Let's go back to the 1970s and 1980s Jamaica and even 1990s Jamaica. We had this we had different institutions in our country in different communities. And of course, in the 1990s, you'd have seen the flourishing of the housing schemes, started in the 1970s and coming up. And you had a lot of community civic organizations. Because you live in community A, you join either the football club or the local sports club. And at different points, you'll have a cricket team, a netball team, a football team, and you have a committee that's responsible for putting on different events. Yeah, and it's there as part of these local groups, and you have church groups also. Don't let us not forget them. People are participating in a manner that benefits the how the society runs at a local level. How do we engage the young people through these sports organization and drama groups that exist in rural communities, even on a sort of non-sports related in a non-sports related area, you will have community institutions that are there that are designed specifically to ensure that that particular community is run in a particular way. Now, you fast forward to today's Silburn, and the ordinary citizen does not necessarily, I'm talking about Jamaica now, engage in that active citizenship because we have now become this so called democracy that is populated by citizens who, first and foremost, do not have an understanding or an appreciation for what it means in terms of its responsibilities to be a citizen. And for me, that means it means that you understand that the space that you inhabit today so freely, the groundwork was laid by others, and it behoves you as an individual to ensure that one, you can continue to live in that space, but equally and more importantly, that the space that you will leave others to inherit is better than the space that you inherited. To me, that is the type of thinking on citizenship that when the society engages two things, or engages and encourages two things. One, individuals having a clear understanding of their rights as citizens and what it means. But two, if individuals are actively taught through mediums such as this, or through mediums um, school, if the school is teaching young people, in a practical sense, what does it mean to be a Jamaican? Because that's how you're gonna teach the those at the primary level. What does
Yeah.
it mean to be a Jamaican, it's not just the ackee and saltfish, it's not just the escovitch fish, the jerk pork, jerk chicken. No,
Yeah.
that's how that's just the culinary part of who we are. It's not just the beaches, but
Mm.
there's a part of us that says every community, its dwellers have the in ensuring that that community evolves into its best collective self. Because when we teach the young people that type of thinking, your rights and your responsibilities, your rights in the space and your responsibility to preserving the space and helping the space to evolve into a better place, much better than you would have met it. When you teach young people that type of approach to citizenship, to Jamaicanness, you're giving them a deep meaning of what it now means to belong to this space. And once you, I am of the view when you teach young people that sort of thing, it makes active citizenship much easier. No society can hope, no, at least no democratic society can hope to preserve itself by replicating itself, and it cannot hope to improve upon itself in the future if the people do not see themselves as citizens who must be active in preserving and evolving that particular state. It doesn't happen. And so at the secondary school level, when youngsters engage in things such as debating, you're training young people to become active citizens because you're teaching them how to grapple with the ideas that need to be worked out amongst themselves for there to be preservation and evolution. Because there's no point in preserving the space, Jamaica, unless it is to help that space to evolve into a better version of itself. So preservation and evolution. In any liberal democracy, the active citizen has to be engaged and be taught how to preserve and be taught how to evolve or help the state to evolve. Not There's several institutions that require that engagement, that active engagement. You look at the institutions such as the the Jamaica Teachers Association or trade unions or different associations up and down the country. They require that engagement. Your electoral process will not be preserved, it will not be improved upon if you don't have persons who are willing to be part of the EOJ, if you don't have persons who are willing annually to engage in having our elections. It
Mm.
won't last if we don't have persons who can hold sessions to teach persons how to conduct elections. It won't last if you don't have citizens who, in the modern way, are willing to go down to the library and engage with young people on a Friday afternoon the way adults poured into me. at library sessions on a Friday afternoon at Story Hour. I don't know if that was what was happening in Ochiris, but that was what was happening when I
Yes,
was a
we
child.
yes, we had story hour at Orchard's Library. Mr.
Yeah,
Scott and Mr. Campbell, yeah, can call their
yeah.
names, yeah. Yeah.
Those were active citizens. That was a practical demonstration of active citizenship, because you learn a lot of values from those elders who were committing themselves every Friday to what was happening at the library, so that today you can talk about it and you feel a sense of duty towards your country, because you know that there are people who poured into you, and the reason why they poured into you, because they were interested in preserving the concept of Jamaica and in seeing that there's a better Jamaica. And I'm passionate about active citizenship so much that I have a dim view. I take a dim view of middle class Jamaicans who have been educated by the state. They attend the university of the universities, subsidized. They're subsidized. And when you say to them, what have you done for your country? Just on a micro small level, their first response is, some place not do nothing for me. But when you deconstruct the fact to them that when you went to tertiary, when you got your tertiary education, have you ever thought that you did not pay the full cost of your education? What do you mean? I said every year when you were at university, the government of Jamaica had to, if you attended UWI, had to give the university a subvention. Okay, and part of that subvention is to pay the cost of your education. Whatever they charge you when they charge you to attend the university, that's not the full fee, but that's just the funding arrangement that the territories agreed upon. And so those individuals, and you can remember in the, I suppose, 70s, 80s, those persons who you knew who attended tertiary education, who took up tertiary education, they seem to have had, certainly in the rural areas where I grew up, at your school or in your community, these were the active citizens. Even if they didn't attend university, attend colleges, they were the active citizens in your community, were putting on the events, who were having citizens association meetings, because they knew and understood in the context of young Jamaica at the time that their efforts, their efforts was necessary to preserve and to help the state to evolve. Those citizens associations that we had across up and down Jamaica, just think about it. Citizens association, association of citizens. We belong somewhere, and the middle class Jamaican today, he or she's not engaged like that. He or she's not engaged like that because the period when the modern day middle class Jamaicans, those born in the 70s, the period when they were born immediately was the last real period in which you had civics being taught in our schools. Hence the results. Hence why you cannot find on any housing scheme today in Jamaica active groups of citizens who are there trying to preserve and to ensure that there's an evolution of of the country at the local level. You don't find them as much as before, Sid, because people have now bought into this. I'm going to come home, I have my beautiful car, I'm closing, I'm grilled in, and that's it. That's it. And it worries me because I know that no society in that calls itself a democratic society can preserve itself with that type of inactive citizenship. Cannot be. It cannot. You need active citizenship to help societies to evolve. More so, I would say, in developing states where we don't have the resources that developed countries have to pay for everything that it wants. And even when you can pay for everything that you want, there's some things that money cannot buy. That sense of belonging to somewhere, you cannot purchase that, irrespective of how much money you you have. And so it's my view that for us to get to that place or get back to that place in Jamaica, not only getting back to it, but to really ensure that what we evolve into is much more than what we were in 1962. To get to that point of evolution and preservation, we have to not just talk about citizenship, but be deliberate in talking about active citizenship. Because when you have active citizenship, you're creating an identity for the country that shuns those who are engaged in activities that are not preserving of the Jamaica that you inherited, and it's certainly not or will not cause there to be an evolution that represents one in which people would want to live. What am I saying? Where there's a high degree of active citizenship, those who are engaged in activities that are citizenship, anti-active citizenship, those individuals will be shunned, and we'll engage with the police, with the security services, because we know that these are institutions when they're and if they're functioning well, are designed to preserve our way of life. Because remember now, Sid, the police, youth clubs, when you were growing up, they are a part of how some would engage in the past. And make no bones about it, when you have these things in your community, it helps the police in maintaining a high degree of peace in the society, in the community where they operate, because information will reach the police through these channels. Again, the people who usually come forward to police, they're persons who are engaging in active citizenship. See, active citizenship is not just an intellectual term, it's a practical way of living in Jamaica. It has to be. The farmers, they have their little groupings, their associations. that eventually evolved into and formed part of the Jamaica Agricultural Society. We cannot give up on this idea that there must be and will be Jamaicans who are interested in preserving what they have inherited, if it's good, and also building upon it so that it can evolve. If you ask the young people now, and it's not everything, those of us who are much older tend to have this desire to say, well, nothing good now go on come from these young people. I don't believe that, because I sense patriotism amongst them, especially when it comes to the music. Um, Wherever they go in the world, they want to hear this modern music that we are now sharing on the internet. And to me, that's their definition of patriotism. They were never taught the patriotism that requires them to be devoted to the institutions, the building blocks of the society. And shows like like this work of Miss Simpson needs to be shared in a practical way with those who are young who are coming up who access the forums that these the young people, the socials as people call them. We have to be deliberate about creating that active citizen. We have to be deliberate about it if we want to preserve what we have and build something new out of it. Because if you don't have a strong sense of citizenship, not legal citizenship, which is easy to come by, but a belonging to something, then you won't be inspired to contribute to its preservation. And that's what we risk without having realizing it when we abandon civics in our classroom. We were creating active citizens when we had it. But as soon as
Mm,
we abandon it, we really created a vacuum.
mm,
And into that vacuum came the American dream, whilst living on a housing scheme in Jamaica, whilst living in a very rural community in Jamaica. You start developing this American dream, not realizing that your reality is not their reality, and that your Jamaican dream can be much bigger than that, than theirs, because you probably have more steps to take and more to contribute and more to build and a different outcome to achieve. That space now needs to be reoccupied,
mm,
but not just by saying civics, but by saying civics for active citizenship. Our society cannot continue and evolve without active citizenship. And I'll tell you why I say this. I remember speaking to Dr. Steve Vassiani once, and I asked him about the role of the lawyer in a Caribbean context. Does he have an additional responsibility? And he said yes. Why? He caused me to reflect or cast my mind on that period in the evolution of modern Trinidad, in which the likes of Eric Williams would stand up in what's that place called in Trinidad? it escapes me, but in the early days, the likes of Eric Williams would stand up in a center in Port of Spain, and they'll give lectures on different civic topics to dealing with the nation. And so the Dr. Bastian was really reminded me of the fact that as a lawyer, and this applies not just to lawyers, to doctors, professionals, not just the traditional professions either, you have a certain responsibility when you live in the Caribbean because of the limited nature of the resources that we have to help to shape your community in whatever way you can. You don't have the luxury of cutting off yourself and not helping your society to figure out some of the things that it is figuring out. Because that's what active citizen does. An active citizen helps his immediate environment, wherever he or she is planted in the Jamaican context. You help those around you to figure out that which is affecting all of you. If the water is not running off properly, you know how to access the different institutions of the state
Yes.
in a way that others might not know. And so, as the person who perhaps can write, you write and you get the institution down there to fix it. That's active citizenship.
Mm.
Because there and then you're teaching the young people how to solve the problem. You don't need to block the street, block
Mm.
the road. If that becomes necessary sometimes as part of active citizenship, hopefully it
Yeah.
doesn't. But you don't need to do that to get this society or your community to work. And I speak directly again to those persons who had the privilege of getting some form of tertiary education. You have a
Yeah.
responsibility to live a great degree of your life, part of it, not even great, a part of it, as an active citizen, where you give back in whatever way you can to
Mm.
the preservation of the country, because our democracy can only survive if you have people plugging into it. And I'm not talking about plugging into a political party. That's not what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
I'm talking about forming civic groups, forming civic groups that can help to preserve your lifestyle. Because an investment in yourself.
Mm.
Because don't think that someone is going to come up and create for your children. I'm talking about to young people who are on the cusp of graduating, going to have a family. No one is going to come and create a space for your children. You have to invest and create that space for them.
Mm.
And if you're not involved in a citizen association, create one. If one doesn't exist, you
Yeah.
create one because your children will have to live in that space. And you
Mm.
want that space to have certain factors, certain certain things so that your children can enjoy it.
Mm.
I mean, finally, I remember going back to that library. I was at Story Hour on Friday. It was finished. And I think it was coming up to the local government elections before the 1989 elections. There's a local government election, must have been 86 or thereabout, I can't recall. Anyhow, there used to be a teacher in my community, Mr. Dyer. Mr. Dyer used to go to the library religiously and he would read The Gleaner. It was on The Gleaner at that time. and the librarian was there. They had a good friendship, and this is just I couldn't have been more than about 9 8 9 years old. I remember it, and I always tell people the story. Mr. Dyer was a staunch supporter of the JLP, and he said to Miss the librarian, and she must have been. Now I think back at it, she must have been no more than 23 years old. Mr. Dyer said to her, "Aren't you going to vote in the election?" The lady said, "Me vote? No, sir." Mr. Dyer got cross. You know what his response to her was? "People like you live off of people you top." In other words, I'm willing to perform my job, my duty as citizen, to vote, because that's an essential part of it.
Mm.
And you who you're enjoying the benefits of being a citizen of this country. You're not living in a war-torn country, but you're unwilling to invest just perhaps an hour out of your time every 3 or every 5 years to
Mm.
vote so that your political directorates can be elected, because that's how we decide we wanted to do it. And I've never forgotten that. And so today, I still take a dim view. And I'm talking to the middle class Jamaican. Because what? The 30% that voted in the last general election, a very, very small proportion of that would include persons who were beneficiaries of the type of handouts that middle class Jamaicans get in the form of tertiary education. And I'm speaking directly to those sort of persons now. You have been invested in. You can't look at the political process and ignore it and expect in the end that somehow it's going to fix itself. We're going to elect geniuses and things are going to be okay. You are the genius we're waiting on, because you know how to fix problems. You should know how to think yourself out of a problem, because we spent some money sending you to a tertiary institution. How dare you live that inactive life where you think you buy an NHT house, but you think you should not go out and vote. You think you should not sit down as they do in Woodford Square in Trinidad back in the days and engage the people on the issues of the day. The budget was read 2 or so weeks ago. There was an issue about funding a meal per day. There was an issue about the savings that some wanted to use to buy a Pro Box. Where's your voice in your local community talking to those who might not have the time, the patience, or the understanding to appreciate what is being said in the budget? How have you rallied some persons in your workplace or in your community to say, let's discuss this in an era where you can form groups to decide what shoe you're gonna buy for the Christmas party? Active citizenship demands that middle class Jamaicans, who have been the largest beneficiaries of government handouts in the form of a tertiary education, active citizenship demands that these Jamaicans play their part. You cannot have a society like ours in which we were talking about preserving it. When, as Mr. Dyer said, we have too many who are willing to live off the eye top of the other.
Mm.
I'm looking at the time.
Yeah. No, it is really powerful what you're saying there. And I'm just looking at some comments. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining this class on Civics Masterclass episode 2, Civics and Citizenship. My guest is Mr. Matondo Mukulu, former acting public defender in Jamaica and also barrister here in the UK. And you know, it's interesting because I'm seeing some different comments here coming up on TikTok. Leaders now work for and are controlled by the colonizers and corporations, don't care for people. Uh, there's one thing you said, and it was about creating organizations, civic organizations. That is so important for people to do so, and not about joining a political party.
No.
I do recall before I left Jamaica and came to the UK to study, I had two friends. One name was Jackie and one was Audley. And we were concerned about the things in Jamaica and bits and pieces. And we formed an organization called Society for the Advancement of Jamaica. My name is S. Audley A. Jackie Jamaica. So we just decided, and we started to write some articles to the paper in Jamaica. Of course, eventually I left, so it all fell. But that is so important because when it comes on to the middle class, for argument's sake, going out and giving back. I was in Jamaica in April, and I never forget this. I went to the Ochios Primary School. I went to York Castle High School, my former school, Brownstone Community College. And I said to myself, with the whole debate and discussion, which is talking about the constitutional reform in Jamaica, and not everybody knows about this constitution reform. It's sort of segregated to a certain class of people. And I said to myself, wouldn't it be so important for student lawyers, attorney at laws, to go around the country, go into all these institutions and start to break it down, Matunda?
Of course.
Starting to break it down to the average person.
Of course. I mean, if you study constitutional history of different countries, that's exactly what was done
Mm,
when the Americans set to have a constitution for the Federal Republic. I mean,
mm,
eventually it 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 manifested itself in what known as the Federalist Papers. But these were not paid writers. The guys who wrote and they were all men,
mm.
they were not paid to write the Federalist Papers.
Yeah.
These are people writing in the paper, in the papers, who were putting out ideas as to how the republic should be, constitution, the republic should be formulated, and the whys behind whatever clause that they put in it. The- Active citizenship in the form of groups in communities are so essential.
Mm,
They're so essential if we're engaged in the business of preserving and helping to evolve. Because those two, to me, are two things that society must do: preserve itself, and also
mm.
at the same time help to evolve into something that the young generation will want to be part of. You're not going to get that if you don't have active citizens.
Yes.
You just won't.
And and when you mention about the budget there, and these are things for people to think about. When the prime minister, when the leader of the opposition, and they go up there and they set out these figures and set out these raft of measures. And I remember I said to someone, "S- it would be great if the government of the day or the opposition of the day can set out what are their plans." And they said, yeah, it was done, it was done. And the person sent me a document which was over 600 pages. And I said, I have that already. It was a budget debate. I said, that won't hang it. Nobody's gonna read that. And what you're talking about right there now is someone, as you said, to go around the country breaking it down, not PNP or JLP, but active citizens, you know,
Mhm.
civic societies, even the churches playing a part and say they're talking about these things. This is what it is about. You feel like there's a complete disconnect, and then you got, and then all of a sudden what you have is sound bites, sound bites, sound bites, but it is not filtering down to the average person so they can run with it.
You just don't get an impression that,
Mm,
and again, I just don't know. Our middle class Jamaicans need to, before they run off to these first world countries, they need to seriously, con- if you're not a student of history,
mm,
you could think that things just naturally evolved and America got to where it is today, and in terms of its financial and administrative strength. People might think it got there overnight, but I would suggest people go and watch that play called Hamilton. It's quite instructive,
mm,
quite instructive, because what that play does, it condenses a very critical part in the American experience or experiment,
yeah.
some would say, in how you formulate a state and the sacrifices that were put into formulating that state. That's what that musical is about,
Mm,
and how these men, because they're again only men, how they put together their learning and their exposure,
mm,
because some were involved in the French Revolution. I think Aaron Burke was involved in the French Revolution. But what that musical is showing us, historical stuff, is how those who were engaged in building this social project, economic project called
mm,
America, how it is that they were inspired to build as citizens. They were inspired to build as citizens, not
mm,
just for today, but for future generations. Hamilton was involved in building what now is now we now known as the Bank of America. Yeah,
mm,
and why they built it and so forth, because they were thinking about a state that can outlast them.
mm,
These were men who got a level of education and exposure that the ordinary person of the day primarily never had,
mm.
just never had. But these men were willing to plow back into their country.
Can I just bring this up? And if a persons are listening, because I always say this, and I make it very clear all the while that it is not just after every 4 years or 5 years and to the polls that person can be involved with. But during the course of that time, within that 5 year tenure, within that parliamentary period, what are the things that active citizens can do now in engaging with the whole process so they don't have to sit back? What would you say some are the active things that citizens owning? Someone said, I think it was Miss Calder or Miss Hamilton said about owning Jamaica, feel like you own Jamaica. You know, what are some of the things that you can do during the course of that tenure of Parliament?
Well,
Um, yeah.
first and foremost, I always say to people, try and get a hold of the Constitution, and just if you don't read anything in it, read section 13. It tells you of your rights. Yep.
Mm,
One, and you read that. Secondly, in my view, form or join an organization. Form or join a civic organization. Something that that's dedicated towards preserving the community, the immediate community in which you live. Because all politics is local. All
mm,
organization. must be local, must cater to creating an environment, a better environment where you live. So I always believe that if there's a primary or secondary school where you reside, inquire how you can assist the young people who engage with those institutions. You don't need to spread yourself thin, but if you're part of a school board or you join a school board, that way you can help to maintain a quality type education in your local community. Some people might think and see this as what is he talking about? Well, if you join a civic organization, chances are you're gonna want the roads to be fixed. Chances are you're gonna want the schools that are in your community to be good because your children will want to attend them, or you want to send your children there. Those are the sort of practical things that I think that people must do. Form an, a, an organization that will allow you to discuss and perhaps contribute to how laws and become laws in your country. I mean, I'm astounded by the fact that we have now live sittings of parliament and citizens don't necessarily participate in the committees, even though sometimes I see where those who are chairing committees say we have sent out requests for citizens to participate, no one turns up. Your municipal council, they meet, they meet.
Mm.
Your municipal council meet. Find out how often it meets. Get those who are responsible for chairing these meetings to provide you with the notes. You're entitled to it. You're a citizen. I mean, there's just no excuse that anyone can give me now for not knowing what takes place in the municipal corporation. There's
Mm.
none. Because we have all the statutes online. Every piece of law in Jamaica can be found online. Yeah? If you don't know what you're asking for, find someone to ask for it. One of the things that most Jamaican ministry departments usually do, they always have a section on their website on laws, and they tell you what laws relate to the provision of the service that they're
Yeah.
providing. So those are the things I think people should go to your the meetings of your municipal corporation because decisions have been made there. That's affecting your life, your community. Go there and if you don't go to the meeting, get the notes and read them.
Mm.
And if there's things that you need to challenge it, go there and challenge it. How can garbage not be collected in your area and you're not fussed about it? How can you not be fussed about it?
But Matondo, garbage is not being collected in Birmingham,
Well,
in the UK here.
well,
Thousands of garbage.
but people, I'm sure people where
Birmingham,
I've
London.
read that people are engaged in putting pressure on the local authority.
Mm. I want to say though, another thing also is that people need to also go to their MPs, go to their surgeries, lobby them, write letters. I'm sure there may be groups, WhatsApp groups or whatever. Put that pressure. Don't get into this war. And one of the things that I don't know because I'm not in Jamaica, and this is a question I'd like to ask if anyone in Jamaica knows that if you go to a surgery to a member of parliament, whether he's JLP or PNP, where would you go? Would you go to their constituency, where their constituency office may be painted in green or painted in orange?
Hmm.
And would they feel a bit intimidated in going there? But really and truly, one should be able to go to their MP and have that conversation with them with any issues that they have. And also, I always wonder as well is whenever there are some voting or key issues which are supposed to be happening in Parliament, do the MPs go to the people? But at the same time, I'll say to the people of Jamaica, or I always call and remind the people of Jamaica that they are the employers The people are the employers of the elected politicians. So therefore, you must take that burden upon yourself to challenge your member of parliament. That is your onus. So you can't sit back and say, "Boy, them are this and you know." It's got to be a new day. But as you say, Matunda, the key thing is understanding who you are and your rights,
Yeah,
understanding that you're a citizen. Yeah,
yeah.
you
I
got to
mean,
understand that you're a citizen.
it means something. I mean,
Yeah.
it has to it has to mean something more than just a legal title that gives you rights. It comes with responsibilities,
Yes.
and your biggest responsibility to preserve it and to make it better for those who are coming behind you.
Yeah, that is so real. That is so real. And but I want to thank persons for coming on for this episode of Masterclass on Civics and Citizenship with Matondo Mukulu, former acting public defender and barrister in the UK, and we're really setting the stage because I believe it is opening up the whole discussion for other persons to come in later and giving their perspective. And some of the key points which came up today is about the evolution, preserving this space. Um, but I put something here, the advent of social media, because when you alluded to about story hours and persons who are of a certain age range, when we used to go to library in the community, we used to have these story hours and whatever librarians, and two of my librarians I know very well are still alive. When I used to go to Otrius library, Matunda, social media is now where young people go to. They don't
Hmm.
go to libraries anymore. They don't go to encyclopedias. They don't sit down in communities now around tables whereby you're reading and you're making noise and somebody says shh. You know, librarian says
Yes,
shh.
yes, yes,
Yes, those are precious moments.
yes.
And because you're there studying and so the question now is with the we have so much things at our fingertips. People can say everything they can say about where cartel is today and where cartel is tomorrow. So you don't have any excuse not to know
Indeed.
really about the political thing. Even Mala, who fought, is out there saying that the constitution time for the election is not as what many people are saying. Now that is
Mm.
out there already. The prime minister, the 28 bank accounts, and everything is out there, Matunda. So
Yeah.
therefore, what is the what would you say is a driving factor then that will motivate and inspire people to take an active, I would say, uh objective, because many people don't interact, but an objective way in this whole process.
I mean, people. The first thing, all of us tend to listen to things that confirms our biases. You
Yeah.
understand? So y- people have to be encouraged to read things that don't necessarily agree with their how they see or view the world. And
Yeah.
once you start doing that, once you start engaging with that type of intellectual growth, where you're
Yeah.
feeding yourself information that you don't necessarily agree with, but or information that doesn't confirm your own bias. Once you start doing that, it will broaden your perspective and it will allow you to distill nonsense from facts. But going back to the whole issue of how do I now become a better citizen by being an active citizen, you have to first, again, expose yourself to
Mm,
forums such as this that challenges you not to be a political hack, but
mm.
to be a citizen hack,
Yes,
to
I
be a
like that.
citizen of to be a citizen of Jamaica. I mean,
Mm,
you speak to people on the political either of the political divide, and you think that they think that the other person is anti-Jamaican. And when you ask them, what do you mean when you say Jamaican as a Jamaican citizen? and it's only from the perspective of the political party that they support.
Yes.
And we need to break away from that. We really need to break away from this. How do we break away from this? There's only one way. Our young people need to be taught. We need to engage with them via the social media platforms that they engage in.
Yeah.
A bite size, a, bite, a two, a 15-second
Chump size things. Yeah.
thing on active
Mm.
citizenship.
Yes.
You send it
Yes.
out, and you repeat it. You repeat it because this is how those who want to do ill, they repeat what it is, the message that they're trying to send out. So persons like myself, we need
Mm.
to use that those forums. We need to
Yes.
occupy them and
Occupy that
put,
space. Yes.
yeah,
Occupy the.
and put out that sort of message,
Yeah.
because it's essential. It is essential. I've found.
Well, you know what? Just as I said, I'm an action person, and just like how I said, let's do this thing on civics, and we are now in the process of doing it because it was just a dream when we just said let's just do it, and it's happening now. The second session, the next thing that we need to do now is just like what you say, do some 2 minutes, 3 minutes, bite-sized bit about aspect of civics and start to send these around because if we are waiting for the so-called whatever middle class whatever to come down and to
It's not gonna
start
happen.
educating, it's not going to happen.
No.
So therefore the onus is upon us, and I've been looking at some of the comments which are coming through, and I look at what smooth 77 came in. The government is a political monopoly that preys on the helpless. Second one, the government uh what it says, people are tired of the lies and feel like it's the same old. You can see from Courtney Hutchinson, politicians generally have no interest in uplifting the people. Now, when I'm just gonna make a point right here. Another person from TikTok said many Jamaicans that believe in a democratic system have left Jamaica and they can't vote. What I see right there in all these comments are not a way forward,
No.
but actually I have to acknowledge that it is a thought process of what people are thinking,
Yeah.
but it is not a way forward. So, therefore, we have to develop the ways forward, the empowering way forward, so people can be feel empowered that this is your Jamaica. Like that song said, "This is my Jamaica. I'm a son of." I say, "Song. This is
This is Jamaica, my Jamaica, land of
exactly."
my birth.
Land of my birth. Songs like those things that inspired us at the time when we hear those songs. So therefore, we have to actually uh, do these things. Someone on TikTok said people are afraid of the prime minister, so they are afraid to stand up and speak up. Now, this is something that I hear sometimes, and between and I hear and I'll have my ears on the ground with people in Jamaica, and they'll say things to me, and but they can't say it out publicly, so they want me to say it out. So therefore, we have a responsibility at the end of the day, Matunda. So
Yeah.
that's our next challenge is to set out these bite-sized jobs. Well, ladies and gentlemen, listen, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. And Matunda, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know you like to sleep because you have lots of study. No, you don't sleep because you have to sleep because you're working, man. You have cases, you know what I mean? Let me just put that into perspective. Am I right?
Yes, I was sleeping. Yes, but I know I know you thought I would have missed it. I knew I wasn't gonna miss it. You were disturbing my sleep. I looked at my phone. I'm like, this guy. I told him I'm coming. Why is he trying to wake me up?
you know. Um, so yeah. But any last word that you want to say, Matunda, before you go?
Well, history is the best teacher of them all. I've
Mm.
always said, and study the history of how the United States evolved into its current state, and at every juncture in its evolution,
Mm.
one of the things that stands out to me is that there were people who were active citizens who helped to
Yes.
build whatever they were going through. There were people there who were active citizens who were willing to help them to to fashion a better tomorrow.
Mm.
Not because they had some supernatural power that they could see what was going to happen next 100 years, but they
Yes.
believed in and never gave up on the experiment that they engaged in. We need to get to that stage where we understand that 1962
Yes.
August was the commencement of our experiment,
Yes.
and we cannot give up on that experiment, irrespective of how who is occupying Jamaica House. If it's
Yes.
not your guy, know that, or your woman, know that you need to be out there in the communities
Mm.
helping people to become active citizens, because where there's active citizenship, you stand a big chance of having in place not just the government that you agree with, because you don't necessarily need that,
Yes.
but you get a response from those who are occupying the seats of power.
Yes.
You cannot give up on the concept, on that experiment that we started in 1962. We cannot.
And that's a good point to end on. And of course, and always remember without a doubt, and I keep saying this all the while, that the people of Jamaica, you are the employers, and the elected officials are the employees.
That's
If
right.
people get to really understand that very much, say, really? But I talk to them, I'm a boss. No, you are the ones that actually put them in power. And if we understand that naturally, because at the end of the day, there should be a joint up vision for Jamaica, like how they say Vision 2030, like a joint up vision. So therefore, we all know where we're going. But of course, if one is not able to implement it properly, then you vote them out. But we should be going in one way. All right. Matunda, listen, I want to thank you so much. All right.
It's a problem. It's a pleasure, man.
Yes, yes. So have a good night, yeah?
I shall
You
try.
want, yeah? Good one?
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
Peace out.
I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining tonight for this discussion on civics and citizenship, civics masterclass. Thank you for those joining me on TikTok. Um, G Douglas and fans, and also Master. Thank you for those comments. We want to encourage you to join me on the YouTube, whereby the comments that you put in can be going to the central box, and everyone can actually see. I try sometimes to lift some of the comments and to bring them over, but it's been a very interesting discussion. And some of the key points that Mr. Matondo Mukulu has raised is about preserving the space, the evolution at the same time of citizenship, owning Jamaica, feeling that you are part of the big space, yeah, and talk about the you know going into the communities and teaching and leading the people. Not just wait. You're not just gonna wait for politicians to do things. No, you don't do that. You're actually going to be a part of the whole space because, as I said, and I say it again, the people of Jamaica, you are the employers. You employ the elected officials. And one needs to understand that the employers can always sack the employee or giving them a sort of uh, P45, that is, to go, if anything. And therefore, one has got to be a part of the whole process. And this is very important. Down the road, I'll be having different guests who will be coming on and be talking about the whole aspect of civics. And I'm using the word civics as much as possible. And as I said earlier tonight, civics derive from the Latin word civicus, meaning relating to a citizen, fundamentally concerned with educating individuals about their rights, responsibilities, and the workings of society and government. That is very important. As I say again, the relationship between civics and citizenship in Jamaica is symbiotic. Civics provide the knowledge framework necessary for understanding one's role as a citizen, while active citizenship ensures the practical realization of these principles through meaningful engagement in coming to life. Together, they contribute to Jamaica's vision of creating a prosperous society where individuals are proud of their identity and committed to a nation. And the experiment, as Matondo was speaking about, just in comparison to America, 1962 started the experiment. Well, let that experiment continue beyond and beyond to the fullness. And it doesn't matter as to which government is in power, which party structure, colors are in power. But there's a joint up thinking. Just like how on social media, everybody knows what is happening on the dancehall space and everything like that. Well, also in that same space is the political space. Also in that space, you can watch everything going on in Parliament, everything going on in the House, the Senate. You can see them coming out. That is really open there. Integrity Commission and everything, but people just have to take their space. So I want to say thank you so much, Miss Miles. Thank you. Have a good night and have a great weekend. And for the rest of it, enjoy church more if you do, and God bless you. And remember to like and subscribe and share this video, because I'm gonna put this video also up on Spotify and podcast, audio podcast, where you can listen. So people can also listen to it. And then we're going to be doing some bite-sized chunks, some 10 minutes clip, 3 minutes clip of different aspects of civics, so people can be empowered as they listen. Okay? God bless you. Good night, and peace be with you. Thank you.